It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Now, you can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. Just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com, and you can get a hold of me that way. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. Everything you hear Monday to Friday on AM/FM radio, you could find on our Patreon. Also, too, there's been a lot of, with all the ads and the commercials cut out, but I've been putting up a lot of exclusive content, too, lately. I have the behind-the-scenes story about Mel's Hole, the old Art Bell story with Mel's Hole. I know the guy that wrote the story. I knew Art Bell, and I tell all my behind-the-scenes information about that story on Patreon. Also, too, I just recently did an interview with May Pang, John Lennon's girlfriend. It's a 20-minute interview. We have that up there exclusively on Patreon, but you can always go back to the archives and find I did a 2-hour interview with May Pang a few years ago if you want to really flesh it out. Our archives you could find for free at Spreaker.com or Apple Plays. Every Friday night I do a live show on Spreaker. There's a chat room. There's an email notification when I put up new content. And you can go through all our archives. There are like 4,000 hours worth of shows. Our guest today is Eric Hecker. Now, you could find him on deciphering.tv. Now, this is a fascinating guy. He's a fireman, former plumber from Long Island, has some kind of connection to the Stargate Project, and was working in Antarctica and has information about directed energy weapons. Eric Hecker, are you there?
I am, sir. Thank you very much for having me today. How are you doing?
Actually, I woke up kind of sick today. I woke up with a fever today. But
oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. I'm having a good day, man.
Make sure you hydrate.
No, I'm trying. But tell us about yourself. If I were to meet you like in a bar or a kid's soccer game and I says, hey, I'm Ed Opperman, private investigator, radio host, what would you say? I'm Eric Hecker.
I'm Eric Hecker, and I would say that I work in remote maintenance, and that, you know, I would probably engage that person trying to see what angle they're coming from and what interests them, so that it would be an amicable conversation. But I guess if I was to try to share some of my experience, I would probably start trying to apply info about, you know, the state of directed energy weapons and technology nowadays on this planet, that things aren't necessarily what we've been led to perceive. I think it's a big deal contemporarily.
Okay, so you were born and grew up in Long Island?
That's correct.
And then it says that you were somehow, in your childhood, you were part of the Stargate Project. Now, what is the Stargate Project?
That was a program that seems to be bounced around from different alphabet agency to different alphabet agency in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and probably still going on today. But the projects were in remote viewing and utilizing what we would consider, you know, psychic abilities, and that they were doing this with adults as well as children. And I know this because I was in the child capacity being exposed to things that I now know are just the protocols of the Robert Monroe Institute and what they teach about remote viewing. But when I was a child going through it, we were just being deceived and put to the same activities. But it took me a very long time to figure out what was actually going on.
Okay, now that's interesting. You grew up in Long Island. I grew up in Staten Island. Well, first the Bronx, then Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and remote viewing. I didn't realize Stargate Project was remote viewing. I mentioned in the little preamble there when I was talking about Patreon, my connection to Art Bell. So I did have a little connection, a little contact with Ed Zames, who was a big remote viewing guy. Now,
big time. Yeah, Ed's right in the middle of that project.
Now, what was your personal experience in remote viewing?
That they would give us eye drops, which through my research I believe was some sort of fast onset, low yield, like rapid departing LSD variant, and that in that medicated state they were running us through the standard protocols for, I guess you would say, an ideogram based remote viewing process that the Monroe Institute utilizes, which Ed Dames has actually put out training videos where he was doing the exact same system with his son. This is, the exact same thing that Ed Dames did in that video with his child was what they were doing to us in the library with the ideograms and ascertaining information from a line that we, scribbled on paper.
And how old were you?
Oh, geez, this would have been deep into my youth. For the most part, it expands through my entire grammar school years, which I would say would be kindergarten through 8th grade for specificity. I guess that varies from some places to others. But from kindergarten to 8th grade, I would say that I was heavily involved in some sort of training regimen in regards to the finer aspects of humanity.
And how would this work? They would take you from school? You with a group of kids by yourself? Did your parents know?
They would take us from class, bring us to the library in the school. No, my parents did not seem to know that this was going on. And it's, it happened quite regularly.
I lived in Nevada for a while there, and they have the Bigelow Aerospace Museum. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not actually.
Well, Bob Bigelow, he was friends with Art Bell and stuff like that, and run the.
I've heard of the guy. I'm not familiar with the museum.
Yeah, he owns all those budget suites over there,
Mm-hmm.
His character, and all the kids there, the little kids, for their school trips, go to that Bigelow Museum, and there's like a special little film that they show all these kids.
Oh boy, that seems odd.
Oh, it's perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, I mean, what could be going wrong there?
Oh, yeah, that's nothing to see here.
Yeah. Who wants to be part of the breakaway civilization next?
Yeah, right. Okay, so now this was happening in school. Your parents didn't know. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was your experience with this. Now, did it end there, or did this go on after this experience in grammar school?
I don't think it ended per se. I think there was almost just different how would I put it? Almost like you would graduate to a different level of interaction. I mean, the longer this stuff goes on, I mean, when I first started speaking publicly, I kind of joked around with the idea of am I a targeted individual? But now I'm like, man, I think there's a lot of credence to a lot of the things that targeted individuals through the decades have been claiming, that there's research and development, there's practical applications. It's a very interesting thing to pay a lot of attention to what's going on around you nowadays. Well, most people are very distracted by digital appurtenances.
Yeah. So you look to be in your pictures here. You're about 55, 60.
Who, me?
Oh, did I insult you? I'm sorry.
No, I'm not insulted. I just need to take better pictures, apparently.
Well, you're wearing sunglasses. You got a scarf on. You're supposed to be about 55. How old are you?
I'm in my late 40s, and I don't even know what picture you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about off my website, all geared up. Oh, yeah, who would know?
Okay, I apologize. Late 40s.
No, that's all good. That's hilarious.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's stuck my foot. Like I said, I have a fever today, so I have an excuse. Now,
that's fine.
So now that you're older, you're in your 40s, have you gone back to your family members and say, hey, I think this happened to me when I was a kid? What do they say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my father, I've communicated with this on many times, and this is where I'm getting a lot of good feedback to, get a different perspective of what was going on back then. And yeah, he's aware of, things that did occur and now looks at them differently in hindsight as well. So we're kind of just putting our heads together. Like I said earlier, as a child, in my first-hand experience with this stuff in chronological order, I was being lied to. So, it's a lot to ask a child who's being deceived to tell you exactly what's going on. So there's a lot of things that I had to look into to get answers to questions that I had been carrying for years, but, didn't even know what to do with.
And then what about today? Do you still feel you have remote viewing abilities? Do you still practice this today?
Of course, everybody has remote viewing abilities, and it's just a matter of who wants to exercise them. Just like, anybody can play the guitar. It's just a matter of how good you are and how much you practice, right? So I just come from the angle of I was heartily trained in it as a child, and having had practice and proficiency at one point, they say it's like muscle memory. So it's, I guess, easy for me to know things.
Well, give me some examples of when you were a kid that you experienced with remote viewing.
Well, it would have been the times in the library where they were running us through the protocols. We'd be sitting at a desk, putting the ideogram on the paper, and they would go through the line of questions. Do you see mountains or water? Do you see sun or a moon? And they would just tell you that don't think too hard. Just whatever comes to mind is the right answer. And that was one of the things that always stuck out to me as extremely peculiar. Was I went to a very old-fashioned German-Irish Catholic school on Long Island, so it was I'm sure you can imagine. But in that process, there's right and there's wrong. That's the world that I was raised in, and wrong got your ass beat usually. And so the fact of the matter of entering that library where anything you say now is the right answer was extremely peculiar. That was, struck me as very odd at the time.
Well, you got to imagine, I went to a Catholic school, too, as well, in the Bronx.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Same school that Sotomayor, the Supreme Court judge, went to.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I'm 20 years older than you, so you can imagine what it was like back in those days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, for sure.
It was torture, man. You had to fight your way in and fight your way these nuns,
Yeah, absolutely.
But is there a remote viewing experience that stands out to you? Hey, Ed, I saw this ship out in the middle of the ocean. I saw this thing, something like that.
I guess I would have to say that quite a few years ago, I guess almost similar to Nikola Tesla, I started seeing some complex patterns and things like that were becoming very prevalent in my thought stream, I guess you would say. And I eventually wound up having to put pen to paper and drawing out everything that I was envisioning. So I would say that was a very powerful remote viewing, because it was almost like, sometimes you feel like when you're utilizing these skills that you are making a call out to the cosmos and gathering information. But this one, it almost seemed like somebody was calling me, like, hey, this info is for you.
Very interesting. Now, also, too, back to the Catholic school experience, I can remember when I was a kid, they would do this thing, I guess it was about once a year, where they would have you test our hearing. They would put this thing in.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Any information about that you find suspicious now looking back?
Oh, absolutely, 1,000%. The soundproof booth was oftentimes something that we would sit in, and, we would don the earphones, and they would tell you, listen for the sounds, and, lift your hand on this side if you hear a sound over here, and vice versa. And that's all well and good. And there's actually a lot of good and bad that, depending on what technology and what you think the handlers are up to, could be going on. But we do have to clarify that, in regards to the remote viewing program specifically, these boxes were also like Faraday cages. So there's a lot of conversation about the Stargate program and the MK Ultra programs utilizing these types of devices as Faraday cages so that they could have more control over the subject, I guess you would say, or understanding of the controls upon them, so that there wasn't outside interference with things.
Yeah, Faraday cage would filter out the frequencies and radio frequencies, all kind of stuff like that. Now, okay. What about now? Okay, now I'm on Facebook, and you're not, though. Okay, but now that I've done the radio show, people from my grammar school from Blessed Sacrament over there have contacted me and says, "Hey, Ed, I remember you," and we talked about the nuns beating us up. Okay, it's usually the main topic. Have you been contacted by anyone from your childhood and said, "Hey, Eric, man, I remember having this happen to me too"?
Not that I want to give out names and things like that, but absolutely, I get a lot of support from all of the folks that I seem to have become